Which city are you not going to visit ever again and why? Memphis, Tennessee. Had to do some field work there. Cool park next to the river. Cool BPS pyramid. Never seen so many people driving around with cracked windshields. Almost got hit while driving multiple times by people running stop signs and red lights. Last straw was when I was coming up to an intersection, had a green light. Noticed someone in a white truck coming from the left. Slammed on brakes, barely slowed enough for the white truck to pass just in front of me and T-bone a sedan that was in the lane next to mine. Firemen had to jaws of life the car open to get the guy out and immediately sent him off to the hospital in an ambulance. Guy wasn't moving or responding to EMS, don't know if he died or what. Immediately called my boss and told him I'm GTFO and going home. Even the street merchants in Marrakesh are super aggressive. Makes you super uncomfortable. 0/10 would not recommend. My sister had the same experience in Naples, Italy. She backpacked around Europe after college, went to 9 different countries and dozens of cities from the UK and Russia to Greece and Turkey. All by herself as a single woman. However, nothing scared her more than walking around Naples and having crowds of men of all ages follow her around, try to touch her, or push her into cars/buildings. She was supposed to stay for 3 days but caught the first transportation out after 3 hours. My wife and I, white Canadians, just went to Marrakesh a few months ago. It honestly wasn't too bad. We walked around the Medina and the souks and weren't harassed too bad. We even ventured out after dark one night to find a restaurant in the Medina and it was okay. The conclusion I came to was that it was mostly safe, but it felt hella unsafe. All the things that one associates with a sketchy situation, poorly lit, crowded, noisy, some poverty, etc., made it feel really unsafe, but I think that's just normal. It's not the safest place to be, but it's not as dangerous as it feels. That said, I'm not sure we'd go back. Once was enough. It was a crazy extreme culture shock for us. It was just utter chaos everywhere. It overwhelms all your senses with people, noise, smells, animals, shops, etc. When we got to our riad in the Medina, I really had thought we landed on a different planet. Well, maybe we'd go again but not for a couple years, laughing face. This is my husband's answer too. His most distinct memory of Marrakesh was the armed children huffing glue in the alleyways and mugging tourists. Dubai. The mall was great etc. but once you'd seen it that was about it. People being pushy trying to sell stuff on the streets and market then glaring at you when you refuse. But the trains, my god the trains were awful. They don't care if you miss your stop/don't get on and people push you back into the train as you're trying to get off. My mum and I only made it off because another woman in front of us literally yelled, "Can we get off first please?" And the people around her were taken aback as though she were being unreasonable. It was a nightmare. That and my partner was almost stopped from going into the men's room at the airport because he had shoulder-length hair and they thought he was a woman. That was kind of funny though. Miami, the beaches aren't worth the traffic and the hotels/restaurants/bars are astonishingly pretentious/expensive for how mediocre most of them are. I'm also perfectly content to never go to Venice again. I figured that looping it into a weekday work trip and being there in April would mean fewer cruise ship tourists. I was very wrong. It is almost as though you shouldn't even bother going out during the day. I was only able to walk unimpeded during the evening hours. I'm in Venice right now and loving it, coincidentally enough. Very light foot traffic, first time here, absolutely blowing away my wife and I's expectations. Haiti is such a massive contrast to the DR, which is marginally successful despite being on the same island. Egypt, when I went so many horrible things happened. I was at 12 traveling with my mother and she was sexually harassed multiple times. We had someone try to steal our luggage, get into our room while sleeping. Crossing the roads are insane. The weather was brutally dry and hot, you were pretty much bullied into riding a camel, haha. I was born there, but only lived there for the first 2 years. We traveled to Egypt, Cairo and Hurghada, every year, because I still had a family over there. I always thought that it was amazing, but the last time I been there was when I was 12 or SMTH like that. This last vacation made me see that it's not as nice as people think. People were trying to get me to buy SMTH and randomly talk to me on the streets. They kept on following me. I don't look like a tourist and can speak the language as well. My mom, looking 100% German, once told me that she wanted to take a taxis. The guy wanted 50 euros and insisted on it. The moment she started to talk on Arabic, he offered to ride her for free and was ashamed. Back then it cost around €1 or so. There have been many occasions my mother or I almost got scammed. Another amazing example, I was around 10 and we had to buy something. I talked to my father and I said one word on German, because I didn't know what it meant. My father looked around and everyone heard it. My father took my hand and said, "Let's go, we can't buy anything anymore. The hotels are amazing and going for a walk at night as well, but the people on the streets and in the shops etc. are terribly annoying. Would visit it for a week or so again, but not any longer, and I wouldn't really leave the hotel, except when visiting my family." I can defend Memphis all day, but I cannot argue with anyone when they say our drivers are homicidal. I have red hair and I also went when I was about 12, I had grown-ass men touching my hair constantly. I was so scared. Men would approach our family as we were eating to ask if they could marry me. I'm talking like 30, 40, 50-year-old men. A staff member behind the bar constantly did sexual gestures at me and some other young girls. We didn't know what they meant, so we showed our parents and he had to get escorted off of the premises, but now I look back, it was probably for his own safety. One thing I learned in Memphis is that half of the cars are stolen, not registered and definitely not insured. They do not give a shit. They will hit you and take off. I grew up in Nashville and my best friend moved there a few years ago, said the cops literally don't even pull people over for traffic stops 80% of the time. I didn't enjoy my Memphis trip either. Everywhere I went seemed like it hadn't seen maintenance since the Reagan administration, and everyone seemed to be in a god-awful mood. Especially the guy who woke us up at 1 a.m. demanding that we move our U-Haul. My brother liked living there, though, and he's usually kind of fussy about shit, so I guess it's a place that needs to be lived in to be understood. Marrakesh, Morocco. Only place I've ever been that I've sworn I'd never go back to. After 2 days of walking around followed by groups of men and boys trying to touch my wife, who was dressed modestly with legs and shoulders covered, followed by aggression when either me or her voiced our displeasure with this, we gave up trying to sightsee and spent the rest of our vacation in the hotel. We had Moroccan exchange students at my university. I'm blue-eyed, blondish and extremely pale, and the males seemed to be into this, but it was extremely uncomfortable because they were very forward and frankly skeevy. One night I had to close up the campus library where I worked, and one guy that always made comments to me was waiting by the door with a friend, waiting for me to leave. I waited and waited until they gave up and got in the elevator, then I threw myself down 4 flights of stairs so fast I thought I'd break my neck so I could get ahead of them once outside, as we were a bit away from the dorms. Thankfully I was able to get to the dorms before they caught up with me. His friend was later accused of rape, so I'm always thankful I trusted my instincts. I try not to hold it against all Moroccans, as I'm sure the majority are decent, but the group at our school was awful. A friend dated another Moroccan male and I witnessed him hit her. Needless to say, I won't be traveling in Morocco anytime soon. This is the first, and only, place I thought of when I saw this post. Visited with one of my friends when I was in college, both women, and while the food there was incredible, the street harassment and overly aggressive salespeople was just too much. Did not love someone yanking on my hand and having half a henna design on there before I even blinked. I had this exact experience. Not safe for solo female travelers. I have traveled all over the world. Morocco ranks dead fucking last as a place I would visit again. I just rewatched season 3 of The Amazing Race, and Marrakesh holds the distinction of being the first time in the show that production security had to intervene to save a team. Team 911 Andre and Damon were taken by a crooked taxi driver outside of the capital to a small town where locals directed them into series of alleys. There, a local official detained them, forced their camera crew to turn off the cameras, and attempted to confiscate their passports. After security intervened, the team survived the leg only because another team was over 24 hours behind, and Andre and Damon were unable to make up the deficit and got eliminated on the next leg.